That's right. The Into the Flow podcast starts right now. Hey, Flomies, this is Gabe from Gabe Spotless Window Cleaning. You're listening to the Into the Flow podcast. This week, we get to interview Joel Lamb of Shining Windows in Madisonville, Kentucky. How you doing over there, Joel?
I'm doing quite well. The weather's a
Awesome.
little bit humid, but we're
Is
all
it?
right.
What's the temperature with the humidity?
For most of this week, it did cool down to the 70s, but right
Okay.
now we're in the mid 80s.
Mid 80s. Okay,
So
yeah.
that's probably
See,
chilly to you over in
oh
Arizona.
man, we'd be wearing sweaters over here if it was
Yeah.
in the 80s. It's so funny because it's the eternal argument, right? Okay, is it hotter just the heat or is it hotter with the heat plus the humidity? And all the East Coast people are always like, "Oh no, the humidities," and the Texas people and the Louisiana people. No, you can't. But then I tell you what, I get workers who come from the other side of the coast and they work one day of 110 weather and they,
hmm
they can't handle it. So
Yeah.
I think I think we need to have some judge who's actually worked in both to kind
hmm
of give us some insight on
Well,
what's
come on
worse.
down. You can be the judge.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, actually, I wouldn't mind doing that just so I get an answer to the question. But yeah, I don't do well with humidity, so I'll probably not be a very good. My wife, her family, they kind of live all over, but we went to the East Coast, New England area, and
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
it's I mean, but it's by the coast, it's by the ocean, and yeah, I did not fare well with with being that close. I do better in California for some reason, but I don't know what it is
Mm.
with the East Coast. It's just something a little more in the air, I guess. But anyways, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us, man. I'm really
No,
looking
thank you.
forward to it. We got to meet at the IWCA convention, and we even tag team. We'll talk a little bit more about that on the medley and the speed cleaning
hmm
competition. So that was cool. It was nice to get to meet
For
you there.
teammates,
Yeah, teammates. That's right. We're gonna have to do that again next year for sure. If we still
hopefully, if
have
there
it,
is a
yeah.
convention.
I
Yeah.
know. I hope it comes. But I did want to talk with you a little bit because you're a young guy, compared to me, but you have a long history in window cleaning. Your dad had his own business, and you were raised up in that. I mean, you're probably slinging a squeegee even before you were. Oh, actually, we got some pictures. Let me see if I can find them. Why don't you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about your history, and I'll pull up
Okay.
some pictures for that.
Well, it all started before I was born as far as the window cleaning part goes. My dad, he had a family and it was growing and he needed to provide for his family. And he had very little in the experience as far as like secular work goes.
Mm-hmm.
He had, he wasn't a stranger to hard work, but he really wasn't sure how he was going to provide for his family. And it was suggested to him to get into window cleaning. And so he, at the time, was living in Pennsylvania and he moved on down to Kentucky to be closer to his family, his mom and dad, and raise us. And he started a window cleaning business out of Marion, Kentucky, which is only about 30 minutes away from where I live now. And he started servicing Paducah, Kentucky, which is a little bit larger town, mainly doing storefronts, and eventually branched into residential work.
Wow.
And that was in the late 80s. And I was born in 91. And by the time 91 rolled around, my dad had a pretty well established little business. And yeah, basically, I grew up with a squeegee in my hand. Mom and dad would take me to jobs sometimes, and there was a resort, and we used to clean. Yeah, right
There you
there.
go. Look at you.
So, yeah, I was about 7 years old in that photo, and that was in Paducah, Kentucky. And Dad's sporting the 36-inch Sorbo.
Oh yeah, look at that on his hip. Whoa.
Yeah, he's showing off right there.
Hold on, let me get over here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, he actually
there you go. There's a good shot of it.
I don't know if they reached out to him or he reached out to them, but he got to try out some Sorbo tools. And I remember one time Sorbo sent us like a 6 foot long squeegee. And so
Oh
we got to
wow.
try out
Are
this
you serious?
it was so ridiculous. Like you couldn't even use it because when you put pressure in the center, there was no pressure on the sides. It
Oh
was
my
just
goodness.
like showing off. But yeah, so um, yeah, mom and dad used to take me on jobs all the time when I was a baby, and
Oh, very cool.
uh, grew up
Oh,
around grew up around the culture.
here's another one here. A good shot of you.
Yeah, there's my dad, also in Paducah, Kentucky, and I was 6 or 7. I was little.
So now at this age, were you fanning?
No,
No.
actually, I don't know why I'm holding a squeegee because he didn't let us use squeegees until we were older. So I think we were just posing for that photo.
Okay, I gotcha. Cool, very cool. Well, that's awesome. So what were some of the things that you learned growing up that perhaps someone who started their business on their own wouldn't have?
So that that is a kind of a loaded question because I still feel like I'm growing up, and I've learned so much over the last. I mean, basically, I started really professionally working when I was about 16,
Okay.
and I really got into the workforce then. Uh, Something that I would have learned growing up, probably right off the bat, fanning. Also, dad was one of the first people in our area to start using a water fed pole.
Okay, yeah.
It
So
was actually
what year was that then that you started using the water fed?
it was probably 99 or 2000, and it was a sim pole.
No
It
kidding.
was, yeah, it
Well,
was
Phil
an
will be happy to
old,
hear that. Oh man.
yeah, it was an old style of sim pole where it wasn't telescopic. It
Uh-huh.
was all modular, and you had to just stack
Wow.
this
Just
thing.
stack them up.
Yeah, and it was, you know, it was 20 years old technology. So it was floppy, but it was sturdy. And
Yeah.
in fact, to this day, there is a window cleaning company in our area that still uses that same 20-year-old pole.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, if
So,
it works, right?
uh, yeah, he was all about, innovative tools. He was always trying new things. So I think right off the bat, maybe a lot of people they get trapped into thinking, it's either traditional or it's water fed pole. But my dad
Mhm.
was always very progressive as
Awesome.
far as thinking, and he would go to the IWCA conventions. I remember when I was probably 10 years old, we went to an IWCA convention in California, and it was held at Disneyland.
Oh,
So we
sweet.
yeah, we actually got to go to Disneyland and also do the convention the same year
Oh,
at the
nice.
same time. And they had like little giant ladders back then. They had all sorts of stuff that we still use today. And he was always, trying to be on the edge of what was new out there as far
Yeah.
as what applied to him, because he
Right.
he never branched out more than like the residential, storefronts and um, the resident, like the that kind of stuff.
Yeah, very cool. So you started working, you said 16 is when you started kind of being an official employee?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and oh, I'll say this. Here's one thing I will comment on. For a long time, we only had subcontractors,
Hmm.
and everybody was a 1099, and we never did W-2s for a really long time. Up until about 8 years ago, my family's business decided to transfer over because it seemed that I know it's a way to do it economically,
Hmm.
but um, from what we discovered, if they're wearing your shirts, you're providing all of the equipment, you're in charge of their schedule, they're not really subcontractors,
Absolutely.
and they should have the same benefits as an employee. And so a lot of guys or girls starting out, they might go the 1099 route just because it's simpler and easy.
Hmm.
Um, but it's much better. It's just better all around and makes it less confusing.
Well, honestly, that's why I've never I do 1099s once in a while, like if I have a big project and I might hire some of the guys. Um, but honestly, when I started employing, I really, like you said, if I'm going to provide the shirts, if they're going to have my name on it, they're doing this work. To me, it just felt like if they're close enough to be an employee, they should get the protections of an employee. You know, and of course, now they're going to make less than they would as a sub. But they also then are covered by workers' comp. I give them all the other. They don't have to worry about spending money on gas. They don't have to drive their own vehicle. They don't have to, buy their own equipment. Any of that stuff. So, there's protections for them under that. But
Right.
I just felt like you said, I think there's a lot of companies that sometimes toe that line a little bit. Where
Yeah.
they're a subcontractor, but they don't work for anybody else and they don't do
Right.
their own work. you
Right.
know, and then it just kind of skews that line a little bit. And like you said, just to be clear, so
Right.
sometimes it's good just to get it over
Plus,
to.
plus, if there ever was an accident and they were working for you, you probably would still be liable, even if they
Hmm.
were a 1099.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say another thing that my dad taught me, and I didn't realize this till I don't know, 10 or 12 years ago. He was actually very expensive for his area for a
Hmm.
very long time, and his rates back then were high. The business now is almost 30 years old, and back then it was high, but by today's standards, it's actually cheap because my family's business never altered or changed their prices, not out of greed or anything, but just out of necessity for business reasons. And so, um, definitely a positive I took away from that is that you can actually charge more than you think,
Hmm.
and you need to charge your worth.
Yeah.
But also on the flip side, if you never do alter your business practices and you never change anything, if you're in business for 10, 20 years, you're going to find out what you're
Eventually.
charging
Yeah.
now is not going to hold up.
You know, and that's, I find that a lot too with, you know, we have window cleaners who go out of business, and then their customers are calling around and getting quotes, and they're like, what? You know,
Yeah.
because they've paid the same amount for 15, 20 years. You know,
Right.
in fact, I have some customers that are, you know, I've raised them now in the last couple of years, but they're still like maybe, you know, 60% of what I would charge a new customer.
Right.
So, you know, it's just one of those things where, like you said, if you just got to keep up with it, you know, and that way it's not such a shock when you're no longer doing it for those
Yeah.
prices, you know. So let me ask you a little bit about work ethic. So was your dad one of those guys that was like, oh no, my kids are going to work and they're going to get out there and do it, and did you pick that up, or I've found that sometimes the kids of the owner don't quite get the same treatment as the workers. What was your situation?
I definitely am in the latter category. I remember when I was like 16 and I really got into the workforce. I mean, like we would go to work and it was just basically me and my friends, and we would go and work for like 2 hours and then go to the skate park. It was just like really stupid, and it was just like, but it like eventually just, even back then though, like sometimes we'd get up at like 4 in the morning. We'd hit it hard, but then we'd, you know, mess around,
Yeah.
go out and like get pizza or have hour-long lunch breaks or something. So yeah, I gotta say, there's people in my life that as I grew a little bit older, uh, actually working with my parents' company, they actually helped me develop a stronger work ethic, and actually really became the foundation of the work ethic I have today. And
Awesome.
so, yeah, and it's not to say anything about my dad or my parents. Like, yeah, he did encourage us to go out and work, but for certain reasons and because of the situation, he really wasn't able to keep a good eye on us. So when the cat's away, the mice will play. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you know, I that's something I think about because I've got a daughter and I want to train her. You know, I tell her, look, you may not want to be a window cleaner, and that may not be the thing that you do, but you're going to learn how to clean windows, and you're going to learn how to work a full day. You know,
Yeah.
and you know, I want to be fair to her. I don't want to push her, you know, where beyond her means, but at the same time, I also don't want her to miss out on the benefits you get from having a hard job, you know, and working hard
Mm-hmm.
at it. I mean, I worked fast food, you know, those are my first few jobs that I had, and it was, you know, miserable work, but it's like I tell, you know, people all the time, the stuff I learned in fast food, the customer service aspect, the working hard, the finishing the job, all of that stuff, I use that way more than I did with anything I learned in school. That stuff that I learned, you know, is actually makes me money that I learned in fast food than anything that, you know, anything else that I learned.
Oh, well, I'll also say this: if money was the only thing that mattered, which it doesn't, I don't have a college education, and I'm able to provide for my family
Yeah.
without a college education. And so that's something that I will say my dad did teach me is he never put emphasis on, higher education, but he showed us that if you do good work and you care about what you do, you can make enough, to live.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Okay, so who are some of the formative people then you mentioned that you could really benefit from that you learned and kind of honed your work skills and your work ethic skills?
Well, there was somebody probably when I was about 17 or 18 that worked in my family's business that he really kind of helped crack the whip on me. And so that probably is where it began. But then also, um, I still had kind of that mindset where, you just do enough to
Mm-hmm.
get a passing grade.
Yep.
And then my whole life changed, and I ended up moving to Hawaii um, with my parents. And I worked different jobs over there, and I did different types of worked for other people, and that was a good experience because you do realize, wow, I was spoiled. I had it good. I worked at like a nut farm,
Oh, wow.
cracking kukui nuts and harvesting the meat from it and
Oh,
toasting
sweet.
it. And I had to deal with like cockroaches constantly. In fact, my workmate and I would make a game where we would grab handfuls of cockroaches and throw them at each other.
Oh,
And
gross.
however many stuck, that was
Oh,
points. So I mean, that was definitely harder work
wow.
than
Yeah.
than what I was used to. So that started to help shape me. But then I had an opportunity while living in Hawaii to clean windows again for another company. And it just so happens that the gentleman that owned that company was a former IWCA president, and he had built multiple window cleaning businesses over the years and grew them tremendously, at least to me anyway, and then sold them, and eventually found his way to moving his family and starting the new business in Hawaii. And he reached out to me. Yeah, there he is right there.
This
If he
is a
ever sees,
really great
yeah,
picture of you two.
that was after a really long hot day.
Was this in Hawaii?
That was in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were at a resort and it was hot. And at the time when that picture was taken, I knew that I would be leaving Hawaii, and I wanted to take some pictures with Paul. And that, for whatever reason, is the only one I took. But he taught me a lot. I mean, he has a wealth of knowledge. He owned a high-rise company. He was the only IWCA president at that time, anyway, that was president while having a strictly residential company.
Oh, wow.
I mean, he's literally done it all. Glass restoration. I mean, he's super involved in the science of fabricating debris, everything. And while I worked for him, I mean, he expected a full day's work,
Mm-hmm.
and something I wasn't used to.
Yeah.
And he broke me in, and I really enjoyed the experience. And I did pick his brain a lot. And
Yeah.
he really he might not realize it, but I view him as a mentor, and he might not realize he mentored me, but he did.
Awesome. Very cool. I'm glad to hear that because, man, let me tell you, I feel like I'm just this big meanie, because I expect my workers to work full day, and sometimes I get these young guys and they're just not, it's not their fault. It's just they've not used to working that much, but I expect it. And I, we talk, I try to impress that upon them in the interview. So I'm glad to hear that the end result for you was something positive, because I do want, I don't want it to just be like, hey, it's my way or the highway, or you have to do it this way. I'm hoping to impart a skill set to them that will benefit them regardless if they stay in window cleaning or not, but that they're willing, they learn that, that work ethic, because I don't like staying out in the heat, I don't
No.
like working a 10-hour
Well,
day, but I do it because it needs to be done and because that's part of the business.
as far as that goes, I have personally trained maybe 4 different people. So, I mean, I don't have as much experience probably as you in that area, but uh, just in general, the way I try to do that is just lead by example. So be reasonable, take water breaks, and you can take normal breaks, but your time's being accounted for. If your bathroom breaks, add up to 2 hours in a day, something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually I did move back, and I worked for my family's business again, and they ended up making me the chief of operations, and I had to manage their crews. And I haven't completely fleshed out my managing style, but lead by example, I think, is a good place to
Oh
start.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, I don't ever expect anyone to do something that I'm not going to do with them. But I'm just glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that people can learn from that, because
Yeah.
it gets frustrating, and I hate for that frustration to come across, and it helps me to know that there's still a positive outcome to that, or there could be. That kind of helps me to kind of keep things in check.
Hmm.
So you were in Hawaii. You were working for Paul. When did you come back to the States?
I came back. So I lived in Hawaii for a little over 3 years, and I worked for Paul for a year and a half. And then I came back in 2015, and that was to marry my now wife
Ah,
and, yep, and settle down in Kentucky. And just like a lot of things, part of the decision, we talk about different rates in California versus Kentucky or whatever. It is so expensive to live in Hawaii, so that was a
oh yeah, I
major
can't imagine.
major factor in deciding to move back. So yeah, in 2015, I moved back to Kentucky.
Very cool. And so, did you start your business right? Was that your intention when you went there, or did you work for someone else, or how'd you kind of do
No,
that?
I worked the family business where they made me the chief of operations and got some more experience and actually business management and what all is entailed in that. But uh, then I had an opportunity to break away and start my own company, and so that's what I did.
So, how did you mean you learned business management? What was that? What was that entail?
Well, so I had grown up around the industry, and I had grown up in a family that owned their own business. But that's still totally different from being involved in the administrative side of things, the scheduling, um, reprimanding employees, clock in, clock out, keeping track of equipment, tools, tool acquisition, doing estimates on accounts, whether it be a small storefront or like a large hotel.
Mm-hmm.
There were so many more layers to it than just cleaning the windows, which Paul he kind of prepared my mind for it, but actually being involved in that side of the business it was a lot different than just cleaning the windows.
Sure, sure. And so you started your own business, and then what were some of the challenges that you had going from working for someone for so long? You talked about studying the management part of it, but now
Right.
you actually own it, and now you're responsible and accountable, and you're the one who's going to be liable for this business. So what were some of the things that you had to deal with at that point?
Um, well, definitely first and foremost, don't bite off more than you can chew.
Yeah.
So, uh, going from at that particular time, it was like a 25-year-old business, to over that actually, very well established, but now I have to go out and I have to find work and I'm hungry and I want to take what I can
Mm-hmm.
get very early on. I'm talking about like within the first 3 months, opportunities arose that if I would have tried to, to, to do these accounts or pick up these contracts would have squashed me. I mean, I didn't have any tools. I didn't have any equipment, nothing. All I had basically was an image and a website. And it was very, very tempting. And I credit listening to three things basically: my wife, secondly, my father-in-law, who has his own business, and he's owned his own business for well over a decade. And then also, I was listening to I think his name's Josh Cronin,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
Jersey.
Jersey. Yeah.
Yeah, he had an episode that talked about ways I almost ruined my business, and it was growing too fast. And yeah. So definitely that, because you're so hungry and you're so desperate and you want to take care of your family. But what eventually, so I had to let some of these opportunities go because it
Yeah.
would have killed us right off the bat. One thing I will say to people that have these opportunities come up and they're thinking, oh, if I just go into debt right now and I buy all these tools, I hire all these people and I can pick up this work and eventually it'll all work out. Just let it go, grow at a rate that's maintainable. And guess what? Those opportunities that are like once in a lifetime, you feel like
Come a
more of
lot.
them are going to come.
Yep.
They're going to just, if you do a good job and you have a good image, more are going to come.
Yeah.
Definitely that. I'll also say software.
Oh.
Right off the bat, I knew I wanted good software because my family's business, I really, really liked the software that they used. And so I started looking at different accounting, bookkeeping software, and like another software like House Call Pro is what I eventually ended up going with.
Okay.
But I had to learn that, there's,
Yeah. There's a big learning curve with that, with
yeah,
any CRM really. No matter how
yeah,
user friendly it is, you have to get your money worth of it. You got to know what it does and what it can
right.
do.
But what I will say is once you figure it out, it's worth it.
Yeah,
A hundred,
absolutely.
100%. Whatever that kind of investment that pays dividends.
Mm-hmm.
It has streamlined a lot of things from scheduling, sending out estimates, and even things like or house call will or different things like that will send out messages to the customers. That kind of stuff leaves an impression that's gotten us more work. Um, I know one of the things you've talked about is web presence.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's very important. I'll say another thing starting out that was a bit of a struggle was this is a crazy one. Our pure water system.
Mm.
We ordered a pure water system from the United Kingdom, and we had to build it ourselves. And we built it in anticipation for a job coming up several months out. It took 2 months to get the system, and then we had to build
Oh
it
my
ourselves
goodness.
with little to no instructions. We had to drill holes in the van and mount it,
Oh my
and it
gosh.
was, those are kind of some of the stresses that an employee doesn't have.
Right.
Employees
Yeah.
not up at 9 o'clock at night with their father-in-law, like looking at this like spaghetti mess of wires, like what are we doing? But we got it all figured out.
Now you do talk a lot about your business model has always been stay small and profitable, right? And you want to you mentioned you're very similar to like Kevin Hargis, who focus on the really big buildings, the really large things that you can do that will keep you busy for a long time, and then that way you've got that time where you're not having to go out and get the work constantly. Because
Right.
I'm mainly residential, and I do commercial and I do big buildings, but the problem I run into in my area anyways is there are so many companies who want those big buildings. If I get one of those jobs, I have to lose money to get the building because I could make more than that doing the residential, you know?
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I'm taking a big chunk, maybe 2 days away from residential work just to handle this. In fact, this coming week we have 6 buildings that we do, and I'm almost losing money on this week that I would normally make. Now I'm taking it
Right.
because August is typically a slow time for me. In the history of my business, normally I don't have hardly any work, so this is the perfect time to do those. But it just so
Right.
happens with this whole weird COVID thing, now I'm super busy with residential, so
Right.
I'm actually pushing away work, or at least pushing work down the line, so I can take care of these businesses that I'm obligated to do. So, what is your strategy then? Is your market similar to that, or is commercial just more profitable than the
There,
residential?
there is a lot of money to be made in the residential side.
Mm-hmm.
Where I live, I mean, there's just, it seems to me, anyway, I've only lived in 2 areas, but it seems to me there's houses everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And with, as many years of experience I have, it seems like there's always going to be people that want it. But in our area, you can make a lot of money in residential because we have lakes. So there's large lake homes. There's different affluent areas where there's that, but there's also cookie cutters where you can knock them out real fast. So there's more than one way to skin a cat. But what I noticed in our area is that, well, first of all, window cleaning to me is kind of a niche industry because it's not really janitorial.
Right.
It's not really office cleaning. It's just a very specific thing. But within that, you have a large array of things from storefront residential all the way up to like high rise. But I kind of feel like the thing that I personally like to do, which is low rise multi-story, exterior only, is kind of the niche within the niche, and in my market anyway, because
Right.
it's not oversaturated as far as I can tell. Basically, hotels, for instance, would be an example of a low-rise multi-story. And when I say low-rise, I mean anything up to 5 stories and under would be low-rise multi-story. So that would be an example, or some college campuses or even medical buildings, and that's been our experience. I found that personally for me, I don't like bouncing around from job to job to job. You know, whether it's a large house or a large commercial job, I like to go to one place, spend the entire day there, finish what I'm doing, and go home. I don't like the drive time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I also had mainly done residential, even in Hawaii, except for some things. But I found that our best billable hours were made when we were doing water-fed pole work on multi-story exterior only. And
Mm-hmm.
it's possible to do this and do it cost effective for the customer, but also make a good amount of profit for you, because if you're doing it with a water-fed pole, usually you don't have to get a lift or special equipment. You're not accessing the building through drops. And so it's cost effective for them, but then you can keep your hourly rate at a high production, because you're just going through it with your water-fed pole if you have a, proper setup. And so I looked at that in the businesses that I had worked at, and I wanted to focus on that. So truth be told, I do a little bit of everything. I do some storefronts, I do some residential, but primarily it's that multi-story low rise. And as far as the keeping it small and keeping it profitable, you can do a large building with very few people and have a production rate of, if you have the proper tools and setup, have a production rate the size of a full, 3 or 4 people.
Mm-hmm.
And you're knocking it out, and you can be really fast like that.
Yeah.
And so, our goal, as far as future growth, we've talked about, in the future, as far as like retirement, I don't think we're going to have the retirement plan that most people think of, where they don't do anything and they just go and golf. I plan on still being involved in this industry all the way up until, basically I can't.
Mm-hmm.
But within that, I plan on keeping it profitable, so I don't have to go out and, kill it every time I go out. I can go out and make what I need to have profit, provide
Mm-hmm.
for my family, pay for the future without having to have a large crew.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I think we had talked about before is that a lot of other motivational people, a lot of other guys on Facebook, they all want to talk about their $1 million goal, their 10 trucks on the road, their brick and mortar storefronts and everything. But truth be told, not everybody can do that, and not everybody wants to do that either. And for us personally, we want to keep it small and profitable, but still take on, like I've seen some of the jobs that Kevin has posted, and he's doing like high-end commercial, but he's doing it with a very small crew.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how we want to, as much as we can, maintain that. Like we've brought on subs for larger projects, but it's possible to stay small but still make it,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Don't totally agree. Yeah. Let me ask you a question this way, because now, how old are you?
28.
28. So I'm 45. I'm getting closer to where I realize I probably don't have about 5 more years of doing the type of work that I'm doing now. Right now, I've been, for the last year, I've been trying to gear up to do less, to where I'm managing my business, and right now I have 4 techs. I've had as many as 8 techs. I don't
Oh,
like
wow.
being that high. I like being around the 4, but I want 4 solid techs. Right now I have 2 solid and then 2 learners, and their
Mm-hmm.
quality. Now, character wise, I'm really happy with the 2 new guys that I have. I got to train them still, but until they get, but I'm anticipating in about 4 months that they'll be viable techs where I can have them run a crew if needed, to go.
Yeah.
So I'm getting towards where I want to have others do the work, and I'm running the business. Do you foresee that in your future even? I mean, obviously you're 28. You got a lot of time ahead of you. But do you see yourself getting to the point, even if you stay small, but like, let's say you've got 2 techs and those 2 techs do all your work? And I'm asking that because there's a guy in town that I'm friends with who, he did that for a while, but he ran into trouble where he couldn't keep tech. So he's back to working now. He hates it. He wants
Yeah.
to go back to where he was managing and he had two guys that he could just send on the jobs, you know. What are your goals, or what do you foresee at that particular time?
So this is almost, we're 2.5 years into business, working for ourselves. And next year, we're going to have a trial run. And the trial run is going to be visiting my family in Hawaii and letting the workers that we do have just run it. Basically, I mean, they're going to do the work. And then we're going to do the phone calls, payroll, everything that we can do online or over the phone. We're going to try and do that from Hawaii, and it's going to be a little test run. We're going to keep the workload light and just see what that
Mm-hmm.
looks like. But I have a person that I've worked with. One of the people that when I was 16, we worked together and we would go play, during work, right? Well, now we've both grown up, and he's very responsible. He's married. He's basically my right-hand guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I do got to say, for that situation to work where you don't have an infrastructure, where you've got an office full of people answering the phone, and you've got, the office person handling everything else, and there's also a manager in the field.
Mm-hmm.
For that situation to work where it's just a very small crew,
Mm-hmm.
you have to have the right people.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
we're gonna do a trial run next year.
Good.
And I definitely foresee, probably in my 30s, getting to a point to where it's semi-autonomous, because I
Mm-hmm.
know it'll never be autonomous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, if you own the business, you're going to be involved, and
You
like
should be.
on big projects, I'm on site. I can't see myself,
Right.
even if I'm in my, 60s, not being on site. If I still run the business,
Right.
if that's something that I'm still doing. But you still want to be a part of it. You don't want to be, like you say, you don't want to be the guy who's golfing and then not. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say that. Some guys do want to do
Yeah.
that. Some
I
do.
mean,
They want to have a franchise, and they just get
and
the
they
residuals.
they made it that way.
Yeah.
But in order to make it that way, there's so many steps you have to go through. And then growing pains. That's
Yeah.
another thing too,
Mhm.
is that my family's business went through growing pains, and I got to witness and observe them, and they were
Sure.
frankly terrifying.
Yeah.
So when we were at the IWCA convention this year, there was like a master class that a gentleman gave, where he was talking about basically how to get to the point where that's the way it is. Basically, you show up if you want to show up, or you're just traveling around and you're just
Mhm.
collecting a residual.
Right.
And he broke it down step by step by step, and it was extremely interesting. And I met up with him after he gave that, and I told him that, I really enjoyed that. How does this apply to me though? Because this is what my goals are. And he said, uh, if that's what you want, you're going to have a minimum of X, Y, and Z. And then you can basically still be involved, but have a level of an autonomous operation.
Mhm.
And so basically he recommended that get some office help, and then get a manager in the field.
Yeah.
And then also basically have somebody do your bookkeeping.
If I can echo that, I think
Yep.
the biggest change, the biggest pivot to my business was getting office staff, because that took such a huge load off of my shoulders. One, customer service wise, now I have someone who answers the phone every time it rings. It's never a matter of me being on a
Yeah.
window. Oh, I can't get, or I'm on a ladder. I can't get to that call. I have to call them back. Hopefully they didn't call somebody else right after they hung up with me. Hopefully
Right.
they left a message, or I answer and I'm in the middle of something and I'm giving them half of my attention, and that comes across in the phone call. But also billing. I don't do any billing anymore. I don't do any, scheduling. Well, I take it back. There is some scheduling that I do just because I like to tweak it sometimes, just to make it more efficient, because I know the routes. I know the
Mhm.
house better than the office staff does. But they come to me only with the issues that needs to come to me, and that frees me up so much that that's one. If you're growing, because office staff is not that expensive. I think people think, oh man, we're going to hire somebody. Oh, it's going to be this much. It really isn't. You hire someone who's
Right.
good. You pay them a little more. Than because the standard rate's a little more than
Mhm.
minimum wage. And if they're good, pay them more. Keep them happy for sure. Take care of them.
Yeah.
But boy, that it frees you up for so much stuff, because that's stuff that other people can do. And I think that was the
Mhm.
biggest light bulb that went up to me
Right.
in one of these conventions I went to was, if you know you're not good at something, hire someone to do it.
Right.
It's going to be more expensive for you to go away from doing what you know you can do well and make money at, and let the other people handle that, you know?
Yeah. And then systems, I gotta say, I'm still working on my
Me
systems.
too.
But everybody, I would say this also from day one, have a vision of where you want to be at, but create systems based around where you want to be. And then
Right.
that will also help go towards autonomy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. Good stuff, man. I did want to talk a little bit more about your dad. Yeah, he
Sure.
was a neat guy, and for sure he had a lot of things that he did, but he had an accident, and I know that really impacted, of course, obviously his life, but your life as a whole, and it taught you a lot of things that you've now incorporated into your business. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of time to talk about him, and kind of what happened, and
Yeah.
what you learned from it.
So when I was about 12 years old, my dad was on a job with my mom and my brother, and he was using leg levelers inside of a house, and he was about 18 feet up in the air when one of the leg levelers collapsed because it had a manufacturer defect, and it caused him to fall, and he broke his back. And ever since then, he's been paralyzed. He's been confined to a wheelchair ever since then. So that obviously that deeply impacted me, during some of my most formative years that happened. As far as how that's played into our business and our work, um, definitely we have a high emphasis on safety. If we're operating lifts, which we do some lift work, we have certified, whoever's operating them has got to be lift operator certified. We have invested into pure water work, and we rarely use ladders, actually. I mean, they still happen, but the ladders that we do use, not pushing any brands, but we really like Little Giant. They're very sturdy ladders. A lot of them have leg levelers built into them. So a lot of
You've
emphasis on
just
safety.
divided half of the audience, just so you know.
Well, see what is it?
I love Little Giants. I have them. I pretty much use everything. You know,
Yeah.
I think they have a part, but it's so funny. I'll mention sometimes in my social media posts that hey, look at my Little Giant, and it's just like people get so
Well,
upset about that.
I don't really care what you're using as long as you're using it the right way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether it's a stack ladder or
Hmm.
regular extension ladder, if you're on the inside, get your non-slip pads, you know, just do everything the right way, and we're okay. Also, so my dad, he had this accident and it paralyzed him, and that changed a whole lot about my family's business. But what it didn't change was my dad's desire to continue to provide for his family, and he loved the industry. He was very, very involved as much as he could be in it. So he actually ended up creating a separate business from the one he originally started, and he became a service provider, and actually, like Nest or another business along
Hmm.
those lines, and he ended up providing service to Forever 21,
Mm.
and he got all of their accounts, even globally, and he
Wow.
was able to manage that all from his recliner chair and a laptop.
So just hiring like subcontractors in
Yep.
areas and stuff. Wow.
Yep. So he would vet the subs, look at their website, call them up, talk to them, get a price from them, send it to his customer, and yeah, he ran a business like that, and he also continued to be involved in the business that he started.
Hmm.
So yeah,
It's
that's
amazing.
basically it. Emphasis on safety, and also continue to be involved in the industry.
Awesome. That's really cool. Now, something else about him, and this is going to be in particular interest to Flomies. Tell us what your dad did on Facebook. This
Okay.
is in the early times here.
Right. So probably 12 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago, my dad, he's on his laptop all the time. He's on the computer. He's trying to be on the edge of window cleaning information and technology, and he decided to start a Facebook group. And the whole idea of the Facebook group would be knowledge and information would be shared, and he was the only moderator, and basically he would find interesting articles and he would post it on there about techniques, and people would have discussions about techniques, and it started to build and build and build. And as the only moderator, any negative thing that came through, he rejected it, filtered it out. I mean, even language, like if somebody, I mean, he was constantly scrolling through the feeds. Like I would walk through the living room, and he was always on Facebook, just like moderating, like 24/7, only moderator. And it grew. I think he had over a couple thousand followers on his page. And we decided to move to Hawaii, as I had mentioned, and he wasn't able to continue to run the page. And he actually got an offer from a couple of brothers, and they bought his page, and its page is still going today, and it's one of the most popular.
Go ahead and say it.
Pro window cleaning.
Pro window cleaning page, yeah. But so your dad started it. That's pretty awesome. And well, yeah, we know it's hugely proper. And actually, ITF came out of the pro window cleaning page. You know, so when you were telling me the story, I think that kind of made me a little warm inside, because his, you know, even though you know, he's not involved in it anymore, kind of his vision was still able to live on in ITF. You know,
right.
Being a positive place with information. Yeah. I think you had mentioned too that he didn't want it being affiliated with any particular brand either. You know, right. He wanted everyone to be free to kind of share.
He had offers from Unger and Ettore to monetize the account and have ads, and he never did that. And I do want to go ahead and say that the people that bought his admin credentials and took over his page, they've done a really great job with it. And yeah, I'm really proud of my dad for that, and there it is.
Yeah, absolutely. But I just think it's cool. It's cool that we could continue that ideal, you know. Mm-hmm. And so I'm glad that you came along with it too, you know, because you were pretty early into ITF, weren't you?
Yeah. How long has ITF been around?
Gosh, I can't even. It's not quite 2 years, I don't think.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Probably right from the very beginning. I got a message or an invite, I think, from Kevin. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's like, "Hey, check this out," because it was like, because there's always this. It's just, you can't help it. There's always this bickering about pure water versus traditional, right?
Yeah.
And into the flow, there's very little bickering. Even if there's differences of opinion, there's very little bickering. Yeah. And Kevin said, "Hey, you know, come check it out," and I did, and I'm glad.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we're glad to have you here with us. Your business, you know, you've been running it on your own. Now your wife, now she I know she's involved with the business. Is she considered like a half owner, or, you know, what is her role with it?
Yeah.
How do you guys work together on that?
Well, that's what we've reorganized 3 times. As the business has grown, we've seen the need to reorganize. Mm-hmm. And the latest iteration has my wife as majority owner. And
that's smart.
For we've done some government things, and sometimes for disadvantaged groups, and they consider women disadvantaged. Not that I think women are disadvantaged.
No, but no, it's part of the government bidding. I mean, right. That gives you a little more points in your favor.
Exactly.
You know, they may go with your bid, even though it may be higher than another, because they're trying to fulfill that particular you know, quota, or, you know, meet those qualifications or whatever for it. So I mean, it's smart to do if you can do it, you know.
So my wife is very involved. So she's the latest iteration of our reorganized business has my wife as the owner of our S Corp. And she's very involved all the way from the bidding. Like I said before, I had opportunities come up, and she steered me in the right direction, to even the aesthetics of our business. She does a lot of stuff with our social media. That's Lindsay right there.
There's Lindsay. Yep. Yeah, I seen her on Pro Window as well, I think a couple times, and she's in ITF as well, right? She's joined.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
She joined ITF, and she likes seeing the new tools, and she knows that it's like new tools are like toys for me. So
yeah,
if she
I
sees
think all our wives
cool,
are kind of just accepted that fact.
So she's also, like I said, involved in the aesthetics of the business, and even right from the very beginning, building the branding and imaging of our business.
Oh yeah, you talked to me a little bit about. Let me pull up
Yeah,
that picture. So you guys were you were on your way to Hawaii, or what was the deal with that?
we were actually traveling in Thailand
In
while
Thailand, that's right.
we were trying to get the van wrap and our image and our logo and everything. We were trying to all get that worked out at this crazy frantic pace, and the people that were doing our van wrap, they needed direction because they just weren't doing it, and we were like, all right, let's give them direction, but they needed it like right then. So I think you've got a
Yeah, I got
photo.
this. Let me share the screen here real quick. So this is Lindsay's uh,
Yep,
artistic skill
right.
and given.
So
So this was what was given to the designers, for the wrap
yeah,
designers.
you could see on there it says that's the logo. um, yeah, so I
If
mean,
you're listening on audio, you gotta just at least just tune into the YouTube channel just so that you can see this picture, because
for
it
for
is.
descriptive services,
Yeah.
what it is my wife took a photo of just something random on Snapchat and then drew on Snapchat a rough shape of a van and then colored it in, and it's just hilarious. You need to tune in to see it,
So
but
here's another updated one. This is with pen and paper, it looks like.
right, and
So
we're mapping it out for them, and
some
then you have a final image of what it and
let
our
me see.
logo.
Yeah, oh, that's us here. Let me go. I think it's on the other side. Well, there's one side
Right,
there.
there's one side.
There we go.
Yeah. And
That's
then
nice.
it's basically exactly what she drew out, which is
That is really amazing that they were able to figure that out.
yeah, from like a Snapchat thing. That is hilarious. And it worked out really great. And I will say this, if it's affordable, if you can do it, definitely logo letter. You get shirts, wrap your vehicle,
Yeah.
because that van right there is basically like a billboard, and we've gotten a lot of work
Yeah,
off my wife's design.
that's our
It's
next
been
that's our
great.
next thing, is to wrap our vehicles. I've because I have 3 trucks, and they've all just been generic, the vinyl lettering on the sides, and
Mhm.
it's done well. But yeah, that's my next big purchase for sure, is the wraps, because it's eye catching,
Mhm.
and it automatically carries professionalism when you show up to a job. They look and see a wrapped vehicle. Oh,
Yeah.
professionals here, right?
Early on, when we very first started, I took the van to uh, to a detail shop to get the interior clean, and the guy that was running the detail shop said, like, "Oh, how many trucks do you have?" And I said,
This is
at the
it.
time, I said, "This is it." And he like, "Oh, really? So like, you are the business?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, I thought it was like a real business." So like, well,
It
it is
is.
a real business. It's just this is
That's so funny.
but anyway, it's funny.
Very cool. Well, awesome, man. Well, that's really cool. I just want to end our conversation, since we're just about above our hour. We had the opportunity, and this is really, we didn't really know each other, and I don't know if I grabbed you or you grabbed me, but we had
I
the
don't remember.
opportunity to take part in the medley. And for those who don't know, at the IWCA, they have these conventions, and they're speed cleaning, and the one that everyone knows is the 3-window one, where it's the individual, and that's usually the famous one. But there's a medley where you've got 2 partners working hard together, and their goal is to get these windows cleaned as quickly as possible. Let me just share
Well,
this.
and as perfect as
And that's
possible.
perfect.
So if
And
you
that's what
run
we
it down
weren't
to the
told.
right, if you run it down to the last, which when I competed individuals, I ran
Uh-huh.
overtime, but uh, as few mistakes as possible is what the medley is looking
Yes.
for.
Yep. So there's us together. I think, let me see here. Let me see if I can find the video. Nope, not that one. Let me get out of here, and then I will find the video. But yeah, we got to do the medley. So there's several windows here that we have to clean. And like you said, I'd never done it before, and I know you Paul had done it, right? So
Yeah,
you kind of had familiarity with it, but we were not told that
right,
you had to. We were just thinking we had to do it fast, and
right.
so we went in there and we did it fast. Okay, here we go. I'm going to share the screen here. Okay, let's see.
There we go.
Can you see it?
Yep, there you are.
Okay, there we are. So I'm doing the high stuff. I wanted to pole it because that's what I kind of know what to do. And you're doing the little ones here. Now, I didn't know that we could take our time and go back and redo stuff if we messed
Right.
it up. I thought we just
Right.
had to do it and be done. So here we're cleaning and you're going, and then I finish my part and I just stand there and watch you instead of going back and checking my work. And so here I do this, here the big one here. Get that done. I just did it according to the speed clean the way that we did. And I'm done and I just
Right.
stand there. I could be helping you. I could be touching up my work, but no, instead I just stand there. Anyways, I blame our loss on my fault. So
Wow. I think that that's a common misconception about the medley.
yeah,
Is everyone thinks it's only about speed, but the medley is primarily about doing a perfect job.
yeah,
And
exactly.
then all you go back and fix.
But now we know, right?
Hey,
So
2021.
2021, if it's in there, me and you, we're gonna knock that out of the park, man. Now that we know
That's
what we're
right.
doing. So that's why I said we lost just because we didn't know what we were doing. We gave them a first year, and then we'll
Rookie
get there
mistake.
the next one.
Yeah. First one's on us.
First one's on us. But anyways, Doe, man, it's been nice talking with you. So
Likewise.
glad to get to know you better. I know the Flomies are gonna be happy to get to know you better as well. Thanks for the time. Please tell your wife hi for us, and we look forward to seeing you in the flow. Thank you, Flomies. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll catch you later.
Thank you so much.